We are asking the experts all weekend long and keeping you on top of news, traffic, and weather. It's all here on News 96.5, and this show is fun. This is Law 2020, brought to you by your friends in the offices of the BCN Law Firm. Let me give you their contact information to start off with, 352-394-2103, or you could call them at that, you know the commercial by heart, 855-LAW-2020. 855-LAW-2020. You'll hear Wade Boyette, Heath Nalo, Sir Brian Monk on this show, and it is bcnlawfirm.com. bcnlawfirm.com. Videos of this show are on the BCN Law channel on YouTube. Now, you'll see the expert lawyer on there, but you'll just be hearing this voice off camera, and that's kind of like Charlie on Charlie's Angels. That's me, but you'll never see my face. How cool is that? Kind of hiding behind a fence like Wilson on Home Improvement. But that's important. Anyway, Law 2020 offices, Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and a brand new office that I visited the building the other day. Didn't see the office yet. In the Villages, right there on Highway 466. That's the halfway line. So if you're in Fruitland Park, Leesburg, you're up any of the communities, the planned communities, all the way to Ocala. You've got now BCN Law Firm right in your backyard. You want to talk legal questions? You have any legal question? Give us a call at 855-297-9696. 21232 is the text. 21232. How do you do that? Well, if you go to your messaging service on your phone, it will say where you usually put in somebody's name or contact name or their telephone number. Just put in the numbers 21232, and then down in the message area, and just give us your question, maybe 25 words or so. If it's more than that, send us a second, a third, a fourth text, and we'll notice the phone number matches, and we'll go ahead and ask our very, very good friend Wade Boyette that question. Wade, people coming into your office this week, and it is amazing, people will take a bank, a real estate, an employer, a car salesman. They'll take anybody's word and just say, don't worry about reading that contract. Everything in there's not a problem. Just sign it.
I see that happen all the time.
So what do people need? Do people actually have life estate documents and wills and trust and employment contracts and real estate contracts that they've never run by an attorney and don't really know what they say?
That happens all the time. And, I see two things happen. I see them not run them by an attorney, or I see them go visit an attorney and really not understand. They'll go over it and they'll trust the professional to give them great advice, which they should, but they should also make sure, and the professional that they go see for advice should make sure that the client really understands what they're signing and what they're doing. I tell clients, if you don't understand it, you don't have peace of mind. And most of the reason that a client comes in and hires me is not only to do a good job, but to give them peace of mind.
Well, how many times have you had people contact you too far after the apple was in the barrel, right, and say, well, I didn't know when I signed it that I'd have to do this. Can't I get out of that?
I see that in employment contracts and real estate contracts a lot. I'll see people, they'll go in, they'll enter a real estate contract. A lot of times a realtor will prepare it for them, or they'll go online, prepare documents themselves, and they'll change their mind. They'll decide, I really don't want the house, or, I want the refrigerator that's in the house, or the person told me the refrigerator comes with the house, or that chandelier, it comes with the house. And then they get to a closing. Things aren't quite what they thought they were. And then they start wanting to back out. They come and see me, and I have to be the bearer of bad news and tell them, I'm sorry, you've got a contract, and the terms of the contract are going to control the deal. Mm-hmm. And they're usually, well, I thought it was in the contract, or that's not the way I understood the contract. And
a lot of people even fall victim, and you kind of brushed by a minute ago, with the seller telling them, oh, yeah, I can leave that here. It's no problem. But as I knew back when I dealt with commercial real estate, nothing verbal stands up to the law. It has to be written, right?
Has to be in the four corners of the contract. If it's not there, what the seller tells you or what the buyer tells you outside of the contract is not going to hold up.
And I've seen people that are knowledgeable, I've seen attorneys do this, take a contract and say, all right, I see this contract. It's been given to you by whoever is proposing the agreement, and they'll take and Z out a paragraph and initial it, Z out another paragraph, and the client will go, well, that means that we're not agreeing. But it's a negotiation tool. Is that what they're doing?
Correct. That's all it is just a negotiation tool.
And just when they go back, they say, okay, we're not going to go abide by paragraph 3, 4, or 5, but maybe you could write in this kind of language. Is that what they're doing?
That's what they're doing.
And so you're not violating a contract, right? By doing that, you're counter-offering.
You're counter-offering, you're negotiating.
But a lot of people, Wade, they don't think they can do that. Well, it's the bank. It's the real estate guy. It's the car dealer. It's this guy that's going to hire me. I don't want to make him mad.
All contracts are negotiable. And I tell clients that all the time. I'll read franchise agreements for a client. I've got several clients that have entered into franchise agreements, and they tell me right off the bat, the franchisor is not going to change their contract. Not true. They want you as a franchisee bad enough, and the terms are reasonable and what you're asking for is reasonable, then they'll usually agree to it.
Well, yeah, I know of shopping centers in Central Florida who wouldn't offer a build out or free rent, but if you wrote it in there, they'd allow up to 6 months free rent, but you just had to know to ask for it.
Correct.
Okay, and let's talk about some of the life estate things that came across your desk this week without names. Right. Some of these people will sign a will or sign a any kind of a surrogate agreement and not really know what it says.
Well, I see in my estate planning side of the practice, I see a lot of clients come in and they've had documents that were prepared years ago, usually, and there's been a life change, and I'll sit down with them, and the first thing I do, I don't even look at their documents. I just start talking to the client to get to know the client for 10 or 15 minutes and just generally ask them, really what's on your mind? What do you intend to happen if something, were to happen to you or your wife? And just get a general understanding. And after they go through with what their intentions have always been or what they are today, then I'll take a look at their documents with them to see if their documents actually accomplish what their intent is. And so many times, what they really would like to happen to their estate or to happen to their spouse or happen to their health with health issues aren't drafted that way in the document.
Ooh.
And so the client really did not understand what was in the document when it was drafted. And so, when I tell the client, not only is my job to make sure what their intentions are drafted that way in the document, but they need to have peace of mind that it's that way whenever they leave my office. And, they usually leave the office, one, wanting to change their documents because they didn't accomplish their objectives, but two, upset in a way that if something would have happened to them before they would have come in, their intentions, their wishes wouldn't have been carried out.
Yeah. And while we're talking about that, we brought this up 3 or 4 times ago when you were on the air, and that is people are not keeping up with life changes. And I think about the tear-filled call that came to this radio station about 5 years ago from, a widow who said, well, when I married this guy, he said he was going to redo his will, so I'd be included. She was the second wife. But now I see that everything's going to his son, and all I get's a life estate in this house. Uh-oh.
Yep, and there is, there are certain rights that any spouse acquires once they get married, but outside of those rights, there is nothing that requires or mandates that the spouse change their estate planning documents to include you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're going to take a break. If you have a question of any legal nature, no matter what it is, well, we've got a great attorney right here, and that is Wade Boyette of the BCN Law Firm. Offices Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and now the Villages. And here's one number does it all. It is 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020. You could sing it, 855-LAW-2020. You know what I'm talking about. All right. This is Law 2020. You're hearing it right now as we ask the experts on News 96.5. All right, we are back. It is Wade Boyette. You're going to love this guy. You talk about a community person, that's out there dealing with the community all the time, whether it be the good folks over in Claremont, Lake County, wherever it is in Central Florida. The folks at the BCN law firm are involved in the community. They're always up to something. Heath Nalos is helping raise money for schools through a Dancing with the Stars thing. Wade's very involved in many of the activities around here. Brian Monk, all the people in the law firm, they represent you legally, but they're also out there helping to make life in Central Florida all the better. And the telephone number is 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020, offices Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. And if you would like to ask a question of Wade Boyette, we've got him right here in studio today. We are live. It is World Cup weekend, so you know we're live. I just say that so you'll know the date. And you could just call us right now at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696, or you could always text us at 21232, 21232. Any legal questions. But what we're talking about as our main theme today is legal documents and the fact that, boy, you can thrive or you can be really spanked by a legal document, and don't be too quick to sign it. Right?
You need to just understand what you're signing. And again, and I keep repeating this, it's important that the documents are drafted properly and drafted correctly. But it's just as important that you understand those documents so that you have peace of mind, so that when you walk away from the closing table, or if you walk away from the estate planning execution of your documents, or if you walk away, Brian Monk in our office talks about divorce decrees and settlement agreements. If, once you enter into that settlement agreement, Brian's will do a great job in drafting it, but you need to understand it, because that understanding of it's going to give you the peace of mind so that you can sleep at night knowing that that job was done well.
And who in this audience hasn't had buyer's or signer's remorse? Right. I mean, that night going to bed going, well, I should have asked this question. I should have asked that question. What in the world have I gotten myself into, and can I get out of it?
Right. One of the things I pride my office on, and I pride myself on, is the ability to sit down with a client, and my job isn't to convince my client that I'm intelligent. I mean, they assume that when they come into the office, I hope. My job is to be able to break complex legal issues and complex matters down so that I can relay it to the client so they really understand it. And so my job is to try to relay information to the client so that we're both on the same page and they feel good about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. All right, Kathy, what is your question for Attorney Wade Boyette?
Oh, good morning. Hey, Wade.
Hey.
My question is about a rent-to-own agreement that I entered into with a woman that I know to purchase a manufactured home in Daytona Beach. I was given 5 years to pay it off, and now I am coming, and then at the end of the 5 years, the transfer of title, which is really just a registration when you do a manufactured home, 5 years, everything would be put in my name. Well, after paying for 4 years, I realized that I've been paying her bills for 4 years in her name, and including the water, the electricity, everything. And I now decided I need to do that, put it in my name now, even though I still need another year to pay her off, and she's okay with that. My question is, when I go to the leasing office here at the community where I live in, when I go in there to find out what I need to do, what are the things that I need to look out for that I might not be aware of?
Well, let me ask you this.
Transfer.
Yeah, Kathy, now you've lived in the community for a while. Are there any requirements that the community is going to have to approve you as an owner?
Right.
One of the things...
They've already approved me as a tenant.
Correct. Make sure that they will approve you as an owner as well.
Okay.
And, there's no reason for you to put the utilities in your name. If I was the owner of the unit, I would have wanted you to put the utilities in your name. And the reason I say that is, as the tenant, when you go to put the utilities in your name, usually there's deposit requirements. And so it's going to cost you a little bit of money to have those switched over.
Wade, you're absolutely right. But I will say this. For example, the water and the utilities, you have to provide the water company with a copy of your lease agreement with the community. I don't have that in my name, so I couldn't put it. So
do you not
I
have
know what you're saying.
You don't have a lease?
No, not in my name. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. Now, when you say rent-to-own contract, the rent-to-own contract is a lease agreement.
I apologize, Wade. I have a lease with the lady. I do not have a lease with the community that I live in, and that's the copy of the lease that you have to provide to the utility companies.
Right. I understand now. So, yeah, because the lease agreement with the community is still in her name. What I would do is wait until the end of the 5 years next year, whenever, I would go to the community. One of the things you could do is go to the community and try to get that lease put into your name.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that. I'll go talk to them tomorrow.
Yeah. If you need help with any of this, Kathy, let me know. I deal with a lot of mobile home parks. I have a lot of senior citizen clients throughout Central Florida. So this issue that you're dealing with comes up on a weekly, monthly basis for us, and I'll be glad to walk you through it.
Yeah, Kathy, a friend of mine, just to back up what Wade's saying in a practical standpoint, is a friend of mine has a lease agreement with an owner in one of the big planned communities in our state, and that community requires that for that person to get the activity card, the access card, the gate cards, all that stuff that you'd have in any designated community. All they needed was that this person doesn't own it yet, but they needed an affidavit from the current owner that this person was the person dwelling in the home and had all rights to the home under a contract. Would that be what it is, Wade?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're down to about a minute. Again, the BCN Law Firm is available to you online at bcnlawfirm.com. Now, there are videos of Wade's portion or the attorney's portion of this show on YouTube channel, and that's the BCN Law channel on YouTube, and again, it's BCN Law. So you can go ahead and go that through YouTube, and you can see past editions of this show dealing with all matter of law, because that's what the BCN Law Firm does for you. Their telephone number for all the offices, Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, the Villages, is 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020. And again, you could call us on the show right now with any legal question you have at 855-297-9696 or text us at 21232, 21232. We'll be back. Hey, welcome back. This is called Law 2020, brought to you by your friends and the offices of the BCN Law Firm. 855-LAW-2020, 855-LAW-2020, or 352-394-2103. Wade Boyette, Heath Nalos, Brian Monk are our usual panel. BCNLawFirm.com, offices Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, and the Villages. And videos of this show are found on YouTube, on the YouTube channel of our attorneys as they're speaking on the show and answering your questions, BCN Law channel on YouTube. Wade just opened up a neat thing during the break. Again, I always say during the break we have the most interesting conversations. Without using names, and we have about 20 more minutes in the show, let's have a little interesting adult discussion of besides the questions we got from our callers. If you call in at 855-297-9696 or text in 21232, now let's not get nasty and let's not use names, but tell us what effective advertising you see in Central Florida for an attorney. What really impresses you and what turns you off? Okay? And if you want to call in and comment on that without referring to a law firm and without referring to any names or specific commercials or specific billboards or ads, it would be an interesting conversation for us to have as the citizens of Central Florida. And Wade is open to having you answer that. So let's go ahead. If you can call us at 855-297-9696. If you want to, what concept in the advertising do you like? What concepts don't you like without mentioning attorneys. Angel, what's going on with you, sir?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call today.
Oh, you're welcome, Angel.
Okay, got a quick question. I'm separating from my wife 9 months. I had to leave my home because she tried to put me an injunction and she failed twice for domestic violence. So now, since I left, I pay 100% of the mortgage. I pay the water, I pay the electricity on the home. But she changed all the locks on the house, and she said I can go back to the house, and she don't let my daughter go back either. So my question is, even if I have been filed divorce yet, can I try to collect her half of the mortgage payment?
Yeah, unfortunately, Angel, she isn't legally, other than she owes it to the mortgage company. So, and when I say she owes it to the mortgage company, the two of you together, if you're both on the mortgage, owe that payment to the mortgage company. If she does not make the payment, you are going to have to make the payment to stay out of default with the mortgage company, so she can use it as leverage. What I would do is, if she is not agreeing to pay one half of the mortgage, when you do file for the divorce, if that's the direction that you go in, you would address that in the marital settlement agreement to try to make her be legally responsible for half the mortgage payment, or to have you buy you out of the mortgage, or you buy her out of the mortgage.
She's only on the title. So even if I don't file divorce yet, can I still try legally to make her pay without filing the divorce? You
wouldn't be able to make her pay. In other words, there is no legal remedy that will require her to pay half that mortgage.
Okay, I got you. Okay, thank you for your answer. You have an afternoon.
Hey, thanks, Andrew. You have a great afternoon yourself.
Okay, there's another agreement that enters into the Wade Boyette Hall of Fame. People getting married, wear the names on what documents for a home. Right? All right, let's go to Nancy. Nancy, what's going on?
Hi, thanks for taking my call today.
You're welcome, Nancy.
I've got a question in regard to the privacy of my medical records, as I am involved in a criminal case, a juvenile criminal case. Actually, I'm the victim in this case, and the other person is a juvenile. This juvenile is trying to claim that, that they acted in self-defense, and that I was attacked as a result of self-defense, and they're trying to get my medical records. What rights have I got in regard to my medical records if they're subpoenaed by the court or whatever?
Okay, and Nancy, you broke up a little bit, but I think what you're asking is, can the other side try to get copies of your medical records to help build their case? And
yes.
and they can get copies. They can subpoena those records.
Okay.
And get those records.
All right. Okay, thank you.
And you do have someone, I hope, representing you in this case.
Well, actually, the state attorney is supposed to be representing me, but they're not really doing anything because this is another question I need to ask. The state attorney is telling me that they work for the state, not for me as the victim, and that I am not even considered a party to the case because I am considered the victim. But I am also the mother, so I'm in a kind of precarious position because I care about my child, even though my child attacked me. And
yeah, you're in a tough position. You know what and they are right. The state attorney is representing the state, but I would at least sit down with someone, even if it's for a consultation, where they can walk you through the process so you can understand, what the process is going to be and how it's going to look from your standpoint, both from two things. One, as a mom, because it's still, even, children make mistakes and do some pretty horrible things at times, but both as a mom and as a person who could be a party to this case.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for that. If you want to follow up and get a few minutes of free legal advice, go ahead and call the office first thing in the morning at 855-LAW-2020, 855. Just spell out the word law on your phone and then go 2020-855-LAW-2020. You can also find contact information on bcnlawfirm.com, bcnlawfirm.com. com. Again, we have open lines and open text available to just kind of voice your opinion on what kind of legal advice bothers you, what kind of legal advice really kind of enhances your thought of a legal firm. You know, if you see something on TV or a billboard or the back of a bus or anything, it just kind of makes you think, well, that's a pretty cool law firm, you know. But if you see something, it also kind of makes you go to the water cooler the next day and say, can you believe that guy's doing that? Don't list his name, but, just kind of to share with Wade Boyette your thoughts on attorney advertising and, on the things you really like and the things you really don't like. And that's at 855-297-9696, 855-297-9696. By way of explanation for people who are new to the state of Florida, advertising by attorneys at law and law firms is a relatively new thing in the industry, isn't it? Not that there was ever a written law against it, as I understand, but it was kind of just an unwritten code among lawyers, right?
Yeah, back in the 70s is when it really took off. And here in Central Florida, we're probably one of the most competitive advertised areas in the country. I mean, you cannot turn on your TV, your radio station, or drive down the road without seeing lawyer advertising. Mm-hmm. And so, you can travel around other parts of the country and you'll see select attorneys here. But there are more dollars spent on advertising here probably than anywhere else in the country. Well,
as you listen to the radio, like you say, and you look at buses and you look at billboards, but also, just look up legal firms in the yellow pages. Right. It goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And I guess to make a confirmed decision, it's best to really, I guess, go into other people that you know in the community and say, have you had success with this attorney, right?
That's the best way. I mean, and it's been probably 3 or 4 years now since I sort of got swayed in and started advertising. And first 17, 18 years of my career, I was completely against lawyer advertising. And what I've learned is you can do it in an effective way. You can do it in a classy way to get your message across. And I'm still new to advertising. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to pose this question is, what do people consider effective advertising? It's, you got to be creative. People like seeing something new and fresh, but what do they like seeing? It's important before you go out there and spend, thousands of dollars on advertising to know what your clients like.
Yeah, and I guess it's a no-win situation because you go down the road and you see an office and you see somebody's name on it, and it says Jim Smith, Jane Smith, attorneys at law, and you go, well, I've never heard of them. I've never seen their name in the paper. I've never seen this. They could be very good attorneys, but you don't know about them because this is an advertising society.
Right. And we're a little bit different. We're what I consider a small to medium-sized firm, around 10 or 11 attorneys. Some of the larger firms that advertise, the people that you see advertising, you will never get a day with them at their office. You'll never speak to them. They're really just the marketing side of the firm. Mm-hmm. And, they've earned that. They've got some amazing attorneys. I know some of the guys who do some of the major advertising, and they've got some great attorneys at their firms, but you'll never meet the person who's actually advertising. We're still at the size where if you see us advertising and you call up and say, I want to meet with Wade Boyette or I want to meet with Heath Nalos, you're going to be in an office with us. We're going to be the ones meeting with you.
Well, the other thing about your law firm, which I find very, very inspiring, is I've been around Lake County since 1978 in Central Florida, and you guys are everywhere. I mean, you see at the Magic games, you see you guys at the Pig in the Pond. You see the guys at the Dancing with the Stars thing locally raising money for schools, and that's somebody you can just walk up to in the Publix or the hallway and just say, hi, how you doing? Listen to you on the radio. I see you in the newspapers fighting this case or that case. Public access. And I like that.
Well, we take pride in being part of the community. I love being part of the community. I've sort of got that type A personality where every day I need to be involved in something. And, it's really nice getting out in the community and being active. I don't look at my community as just Claremont where I live. I look at it Central Florida. So I spend a lot of time in Orlando, which I love, or up in the Villages, which is amazing. That's like going to a different Disneyland. I mean, there's so much to do up in the Villages. It's amazing.
And I think it also lends itself, if you go back to the beginnings, the origins of law in this country, you had a prominent attorney in a town who knew just about everything about the town. But, think about it, folks. He also knew the disposition of the judges and the disposition of the court. And you got to know the territory, as they say. And so somebody can come to you and say, well, when I was in Kansas City, this was perfectly easy to get away with. And you say, well, but in Lake County or in Central Florida, the standards are different, and courts do have the latitude to look at things differently, do they not?
They do. And, I was very blessed. My first 10 years of my practice, I was with a small boutique firm for very respectable attorneys in Tavares. And when I left there, I partnered up with a gentleman who had been in Lake County practicing law about 40 years. And whenever you partner up with someone who has been an attorney in a small community for that many years, who has had a stellar reputation, you can't help but to learn just a lot. Not only learn a lot about practicing law, but how to be a gentleman, how to be a good attorney from not just the legal standpoint, but maneuvering the legal system.
All right, very good, because you've got to know where all the players are and who thinks what. All right, we're taking your calls right now on the air at 855-297-9696. Once again, that's 855-297-9696. If you'd like to text us, you can do so. Again, you don't have to use your real name. And if you're calling on your opinions on legal advertising, law firm advertising, what you do, what you don't like, and it's a personal thing to each and every one of us. It's a personal like, but it'd be interesting to hear your take on it. Do not use law firm names or even say, that guy with just give us the concept and say, that really turns me off as a consumer. Or, hey, there's somebody I'd like to sit down and have a discussion with. 855-297-9696. You don't have to use your real voice. And when you call in, be patient, because Tim's going to get to your calls as quickly as he can. Let it ring, and we will get to you. You're on Law 2020 on News 96.5. All right, welcome back to the show. Yes, indeed, this is Law 2020, and we feature attorney Wade Boyette of the BCN Law Firm. That is bcnlawfirm.com. You can go to Winter Park, Claremont, Lakeland, or the Villages, and they have offices there convenient to you. All right, we are taking your calls at 855-297-9696. A little less than 4 minutes to spend with you. We went into the last break a little bit late, but Andrea, what is your legal question before we go to some of these advertising opinion statements? Go ahead.
Okay, sir. I was wondering, myself and my husband, we had a property together, which he was the co-buyer. And he died about a year ago in February, gone was a year. And I would like to make a will. And I would like to know how I go about doing this, whereas he hadn't a will.
Okay.
He didn't have a will.
And Andrea, whenever he passed away, that property that was in and it was in your name, you said your sister's name and your husband's name, is that correct?
Yes, it was both in my name and my husband's name.
Okay, and do you know if it was with rights to survivorship or tenants by the entirety?
No, I don't know.
Okay, more than likely it was. For you to make a will, it's pretty simple. All I would need you to do is just make an appointment. Let's sit down together, and you and I could definitely talk about that and get it done for you quickly.
All right, very good. And again, you can contact him tomorrow at 855-LAW-2020 on your telephone, or you could dial 352-394-2103. Have a text up here. When a firm announces the amount of money they won for a client, it gives the impression that they took the easy way out. Interesting.
And I agree with that. And the bar did change the rules recently. I mean, as there were lawyers advertising the awards that they receive for clients. You see most of those, you saw it a lot on billboards. Most of those have been changed because the bar, tightened that up a little bit and said, you're not going to put those awards up on the advertising because it's misleading.
There you go. Okay, Alice, how can we help you legally? What's up?
Thank you for taking my call. I am trying to see what avenue I can take to get a claim against the mesothelioma.
Alice, we do a lot of work in that area. What I would need you to do is just give me a call. Give me a call personally. I'll sit down with you. and I will walk you through. I just need to get a little more information off air regarding the case. But if you feel like you have a claim there, I would be more than happy to help you.
All right, we have less than a minute. Randy, make it really, really quick. Don't mention any law firms or names. What is your comment on the advertising?
Well, somebody else covered it a little bit there, but the attorneys that put up there that we're going to get this amount of money out of auto accidents, or lots of money, and indicating that type of thing. We just went through a situation where, in the end result, we actually got less than the insurance company was willing to settle with in the beginning.
Yeah, that happens a lot, Randy, unfortunately. And, I'm not a big fan of putting a personal injury suit isn't the lottery. I mean, a personal injury system's out there to make sure that the person who was injured or the person who was hurt is taken care of, and make sure that they're financially taken care of both now and going forward in the future. So it sort of cheapens, in my opinion, the legal profession when attorneys do that. So I'm not a fan of it.
All right, we'll see you again next week for the BCN Law Firm right here on News 96.5.